Tonight on the All Kinds of Weather forecast, Florida beats an FBS team for the first time in nearly a full calendar year with a road win over Mississippi State. We'll talk about that and, more importantly, what it means in the big picture for the Florida Gators football team. This is the All Kinds of Weather forecast. Welcome back to the All Kinds of Weather forecast. I'm your host, Neil Schulman, tonight holding down the fort solo while Chris is on vacation in France. Before we go any further, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts along with a nice review. Always helps, always appreciate it. Also, be sure to like and hit that subscribe button down below if you're watching on YouTube, and comment your thoughts below on what we're talking about today. And today we're talking about the fact that the Gators are not the worst team in the SEC. Big takeaway, big reveal. Florida Gators are not the worst football team in the SEC, as even Billy Napier, who, as we've gone into detail in the prior shows, is the worst coach in Florida Gator history. I'm giving the facts on that. It's not hyperbole. So go watch the last couple of shows if you want more clarification on that. But even the worst coach in Florida Gator football history managed to not have Florida fall to the depth of being the worst team in the SEC. And that was in real danger this year because Vanderbilt doesn't look fantastic, but they look respectable. So this game between Florida and Mississippi State basically felt like the ultimate loser bowl, like the actual battle of mid, like the real battle of mid, as you see on this shirt. This is actually a mid-major Mike shirt. But that was the meme that was going around on Twitter. And I thought it was actually a little too generous because I think these teams have some improvements to make to be considered as mid. But before we get into all that, All Kinds of Weather Forecast is proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants, and they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, even your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, please contact them at 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. We love our sponsors. We also love our Gators, and these are really, really trying times right now for the Florida Gators. This win does a little bit to stop the bleeding. It doesn't really do a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. I mean, looking at this from a broader scale, we all knew the backdrop. We all knew the significance of this game for both Florida and Mississippi State, more in terms of the negative consequences of if you lose it than of the positive not consequences, but the positive results of winning it, both at 1-2 coming in, both with a pair of pretty ugly losses, different types of ugly. Florida at least losing to respectable opponents, but also just being completely outclassed and beaten up in both of them on their home turf, while Mississippi State just got smoked by Toledo and Arizona State before they kind of came back at the end and made that game look a little bit closer than it was. But anyway, Mississippi State also at the very start of a rebuild, and Florida seemingly at the tail end of a failed attempt at a rebuild. Both teams needed this win like we all need air. And it was Florida who got it, 45-28, probably more of an indication of just how much of an absolute train wreck Mississippi State is than how much improved Florida is from the beginning of the year. This wasn't one of those games where the better team won it. It was one of those where the better loser lost it. And look, it's a win. It is. It's an SEC win. And those are generally hard to come by on the road, especially under Billy Napier. This is only his third road win ever at Florida. I thought this team would quit. I really did. I think a number of players on the defense did quit. Either that or the defense is just even worse than we thought. But anyway, look, I hate to be the guy that just throws cold water on one of the very few moments of success, if you can even call it that the Gator football team is going to have this year. But again, like we say all the time, keep it respectful, but keep it real. I'm not here to intentionally bring down the party or rain on the parade. I'm just here to bring facts and perspective to the situation, and that's what we're going to do. So, again, as I mentioned a minute ago, Mississippi State lost 41-17 to Toledo on its home field, and it wasn't even that close. It was 35-3 Toledo midway through the third quarter, and then the Rockets basically just got bored. So this is the team that literally was not even worthy of being on the same playing field as the Toledo Rockets. Because those two teams played and it got so out of hand that Toledo went into clock killing mode with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. So again, that's just fact. Keep it respectful, but keep it real. That's real. That's the reality of the situation of the team that we just beat. And it's pretty easy to see why this team is so bad, because Mississippi State is just self-destructive by nature. They committed 10 penalties in that Toledo game. They didn't commit 10 in this one, but they did commit 8 against Florida, a couple of which were really costly. Also, just some plain bad execution. They went forward on 4th and goal from the Florida 1, did a speed option. Credit where it's due. Nice job by Pup Howard on that play to force the pitch from Blake Shapen. Pitch was way off target, even with Pup Howard doing his assignment. The block was there on the outside, though. That's kind of the problem. Like, that play was going to work if the pitch was just made accurately, and that was going to be another touchdown for Mississippi State if Shapen could have just pitched the ball correctly on a day in which Mississippi State scored quite a few times on Florida and dropped a lot of yards on us. But they didn't execute that play. They also had a couple of drops, seemed like in a couple of other plays. They also had some wires crossed on their receiving routes. A couple of guys running pretty close to each other. Looked on a couple of plays as though Shapen was looking at a receiver, and then the receiver, that receiver he was looking at kind of then ran into another teammate of his so that Shapen couldn't throw there, because that drew another Florida defender into the area too. So it just seems like there are a lot of miscommunication issues on that Mississippi State team. Toss that on to the fact that they already have a massive talent deficiency, and this is just an absolute dumpster fire of a program right now. So you want positivity? Here it is. It could be worse. It could be worse. Florida could be Mississippi State. Now, it would take a lot more of Scott Stricklanding and or Billy Napiering for us to get there, because I mean, Mississippi State is historically a bottom feeder, and they're currently in a low point even for their already low standards. But look, Florida's not there. Florida's not that bad. So sure, if you're into that, if you're into those, I don't even know if that's a moral victory or if that's a Pyrrhic victory, because Florida has taken so many dents and bruises to its overall profile that I don't know you want to call anything of real victory at this point unless they start beating actual ranked teams. But it could be worse. Point being, it could be a lot worse. Anyway, Mississippi State made that one costly mistake that Florida could not respond to in the mistake category with a mistake of its own, and that was the difference. Mississippi State was better at self-destructing and making mistakes than Florida was, and that cost them the game. Because otherwise, the two teams basically went tit for tat all day. And Florida was up 28-7 late in the second quarter. Some good stuff from the defense up until that point. Mertz and Lagway were both having their way with Mississippi State's even worse defense than ours was. Our running game also did some good things. Montrell Johnson did fumble, but liked what I saw from Jaden Ball. Johnson, by the way, a good running back in his own right. I don't think he's the best running back we have. That's a different conversation, but we did our jobs. Side note, Austin Barber also doing a good job. We'll shout him out in a second, more in detail, but he did a nice job. Jake Slaughter did a nice job, and really the offensive line as a whole did a nice job. Florida piling up 503 yards of offense. Again, granted, they should have. This is a horrible team, but again, they did their jobs. So give them credit for that. Again, I can't go into too many positives about this game, because from that point of 28-7, just when you think, all right, maybe we have something nice to talk about here, the defense just takes a nap. Florida's defense all of a sudden implodes late in the first half. Mississippi State had totaled 105 yards on their first 6 drives. And all of a sudden, with 117 to go in the half, our defense just takes a nap and the Bulldogs just zip right down the field in 6 plays for a touchdown. Snap of a finger, 75 yards, 6 plays, touchdown. A couple big plays through the air, one big run. Shapen pounds it in from the 3. All of a sudden, it goes from 28-7 to 28-14. And you think, all right, well, that's not good, but still a 2-score game. They do get ball to start the third quarter, so let's just get a stop there, get the ball back for our offense, and then we'll rebuild that 3-score lead, and we'll go from there. But nope, that didn't happen because Mississippi State promptly gets the ball, start the second half, and they go flying right down the field all over again for another touchdown. This time takes them 13 plays, a little bit longer and more difficult of a road, but 28-7 now becomes 28-21 in the blink of an eye. And from there, it really was a dead even game. Literally just one play separated these two teams. And that was the fumble on the bad pitch by Shapen that Pup Howard recovered at the goal line, which again, he made the play. He did his assignment. That's great. That's a great thing because otherwise this game gets really frightening down the stretch. Butterfly effect does then kick in. For those of you who don't know, that's an old Ray Bradbury phrase, basically saying that if you kill a butterfly in the past, it can change the world in the future. Meaning you don't know the chain of events that you're going to set into motion by committing one tiny act at any point in time. So Mississippi State scores that touchdown, it's a totally different game because let's face it, let's play it out the way it did. You've got a field goal that Trey Smack never would have kicked had Shapen pitched the ball correctly because Mississippi State wouldn't have done an onside kick after scoring with 4.5 minutes to go because that touchdown would have cut it to 42-35 instead of 42-28. And we've all seen the way Billy Napier sits on leads, both big and small, in the second half. He gets scared and over conservative, which again, I cannot stop laughing internally. I'm half dead on the inside and I'm half laughing uproariously that he's the guy of all phrases of all coaches who uses the phrase or who used the phrase scared money don't make money. That could not have been more inappropriate and out of character for him. And yet it's the phrase that we all as Gator fans, I think, took to try to convince ourselves that he was going to be the guy. And not only has he not been the guy, he has been the exact antithesis of that phrase. But anyway, Napier, again, did that. He, again, got scared and over conservative late, running Montreal Johnson 4 times in a row on that last drive. The latter 2 times of which Mississippi State stuffed him for no gain, and then a 3-yard loss on back-to-back plays to kill the drive. And again, Napier's record is now 13-16. He does not get the benefit of the doubt for how he would have operated in a different situation because his record says he does not deserve it by any objective measure. So, anyway, Florida dodged a bullet there. Good SEC teams or even mediocre SEC teams probably execute on that pitch, take advantage of that block they had on the outside by the receiver, and that's a touchdown. Thankfully, though, Florida played the one team that's even worse than they are. They didn't execute that play. Florida survived. Now, it wasn't all bad. There were some genuine positives in this game. Graham Mertz looked really good, deserves a lot of credit. I'm going to stand by the opinion that DJ Lagway brings not 1, but 2 extra dimensions to the offense that Graham Mertz does not with his speed and his deep ball ability. That, though, is Napier's mistake, not Graham Mertz's. So I will table that on Napier for a little while longer, and I'll just say something nice without qualifying it with something negative at the end. Graham Mertz was great. He managed the game, didn't make mistakes, made some very nice throws, a couple busted coverages he took advantage of, but some also really nice throws that I think he'll want NFL scouts to take a look at and get a chance to sit down in their office and explain his thought process to them. His IQ is very high, and he can at least earn himself a tryout or a practice squad invite, if nothing else, with his IQ and just some of the intangibles. Like, for example, his pump fake before throwing that touchdown to Marcus Burke. Great. I mean, that's awesome. That's a great thing to be able to do. It may not work in the NFL. Like you're not going to have NFL cornerbacks like Darrelle Revis in his prime or Joe Hayden in his prime just jumping routes because of a quick pump fake, but it does show some intelligence and some brain power that can translate itself potentially in other ways, even as the competition gets so much more talented and intelligent. But stats were also good. 19 for 21, 201 yards is not exactly a Heisman performance, but nothing to be ashamed of either, especially the 19 for 21 part. Jason Marshall also looked really good again. It's his fourth year at Florida. People out there are probably wondering where in the hell was this the last 3 seasons, but you know what? Better late than never. For everyone out there who always accuses me of being too negative, here's a soundbite for you. Jason Marshall's been great. No but, no however, no second half of the statement that throws cold water on it. Jason Marshall has been excellent through 4 games. He's aggressive in jumping routes. He hasn't missed a major assignment that I can see. I won't know that for sure since I'm not in the locker room, but it doesn't seem as though he's been responsible for any huge busts. He's much better as a tackler this year. He's taking better angles. And I'm happy for him. I'm genuinely happy for Jason Marshall after he finally has begun putting together some consistently good game tape over the course of multiple games in a row. Even against Miami, he wasn't the problem, and he looked genuinely good, albeit in another terrible team performance against Texas A&M, and he looked great again in this Mississippi State game. Lastly, Austin Barber, SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week. God, where would this offensive line be without him and Jake Slaughter? Florida finishing with 503 yards, Gators not allowing a single sack, rarely even allowing their QBs to get pressured, really. Another strong showing from the guys up front, especially Barber, or the guys on the left side of the offensive line, I should say, and especially from Barber. Also recovered a fumble for a touchdown, which is the first time that's happened in the FBS this season. We'll again qualify this with this was a horrible Mississippi State team, but he's also gotten the best PFF grade each game so far for Florida. I'm not sure that he's a first round NFL draft pick, but he definitely could work his way into day 2 if he keeps putting up tape like this, maybe sneak into that third round if he does well at the combine and in interviews. So great job. Love to see it with him. Just and also a great dude. That's one of those guys. That's one of those guys where I can say, yeah, you know what? I totally get why Napier brought him into the program because not only is he a great dude, but he's a really hard worker and he's actually good at what he does on the field. So being a great person is a truly great thing. That's a non-football conversation, but it comes down to whether or not you can play. And on a team where you look at a lot of players and you probably don't say that about them, that they can really play at the SEC level, Barber is one. Austin Barber is absolutely one that can play at a high level. So good for him. Going to shout him out as well as Marshall and Graham Mertz. Also Jaden Ball with 4 carries for 53 yards. That, though, comes with the big negative of why in the hell did he only touch the ball 4 times? But again, that's a coaching issue. We'll get into that actually now because we're going to go into grades now. A little bit of a shorter show. I threw this together last seconds. Chris and I could not align our schedules while he is in France 5 hours or 6 hours ahead of me. But grades a little bit early tonight because there's some more important stuff to talk about at the end. I'll go fairly quickly. Offense gets an A. No, I'll give him a B minus. Actually, because of Johnson's fumble. I was gonna say I was gonna give him an A minus. They were gonna lose points for me for going 3 and out on their first drive of each half. I mean that's not good. At least get a first down before you punt to flip the field. But then you add in Montreal Johnson's fumble. That's a B plus. Everything else is pretty good. 503 yards of total offense. Merch looked good. Offensive line looked good. Like what I saw from Jaden Baugh. Aiden Mizell got robbed of what would have been one of the most awesome touchdowns I've seen in a long time by yet another terrible call by the officials. This one, a falsely called holding penalty. I mean, I'm out of frustration with the officials. I mean, everyone knows me as the guy that has that long thread on Twitter for of all the years of the officials effing Florida over and everything from football to basketball to baseball to soccer and lacrosse and softball and everything in between. It's just I've had enough of it, and I think that I've already expended all my rage that I have to expend at it, and it's just not worth it anymore. Like I go into games knowing Florida's going to get screwed. You're going to assume that this game is going to be adjudicated with all the fairness of a North Korean prison until proven otherwise, because that's just how you have to. That's what you have to expect. That's what these officials have shown themselves to be. That's what these officials have been showing themselves to be capable of, or planning, whichever one it is. And it's just not worth getting mad about anymore. So that's that. Defense was awful. I don't really care to give them credit for forcing 5 punts in their first 6 drives because both Arizona State and Toledo managed to do the exact same thing. And spoiler alert, neither of those teams are very good. But unlike Florida, both Arizona State and Toledo managed to keep playing defense for a little while longer than just the first 6 drives of the game until the game was clearly out of reach. Florida gave up 480 yards, which is the most yards Mississippi State has gained in any game this year. Mississippi State also played Eastern Kentucky this year, and Florida giving up 480 yards was the most yards Mississippi State gained in any game this year. So that's not good. That's objectively a failure of a performance, any way you want to look at it. Special teams, I'll give them a B minus. I don't really love the long kickoff return we gave up, but we didn't really make any critical mistakes. Trace Mack hit the field goal in the semi-pressure moment at the end. I didn't see us not count to 11 correctly. So fine, B minus. It's perfectly okay. Coaching gets another F. It's not that F like our guy Dustin calls it. It's not like that 2 out of 100 or 14 out of 100 where you have to drop the class and change your major. Probably more like a 55 or a 57 or a 58 out of 100 where like you were at least in the ballpark of passing, but you didn't. And I'm giving coaching that grade because they did keep the team together. They could have quit. I mean, the defense kind of did, but somehow they kept the glue in place there. They kept the players from completely checking out. That's good. But the positivities end there. I'm very frustrated by the personnel decisions. I'm on the DJ Lagway train. I am also on the run the ball train. And both of those guys are somehow sideshows behind the seniors who, again, to be clear, aren't terrible. They're above average SEC football players. They're just not better than the youngsters behind them. So that's why coaching gets an F. You don't prove that you're the smartest guy in the room and that you're a genius and thus you're worthy of an A+ grade on the all kinds of weather forecast because your senior guys look good against a team that got smoked on its home field by Toledo. Honestly, though, those are tertiary issues. The main issue, the main just source of me being aghast, I don't know what the defense is doing. I cannot begin to answer for how this defense is so bad, so often, so consistently over 3 years now. Joey Slackman's not healthy. I don't think he's been healthy for a minute. That kind of solves for that one player. But it's year 3, and this defensive line keeps getting worse every time it steps onto the field. And I can't say it enough times. This is a terrible Mississippi State team. It is bad in terms of talent. It is bad in terms of not having any veteran leaders. It is bad in terms of its familiarity with its own offensive and defensive schemes. It's just a worse team than we are. And for them to be pushing us around in the trenches on both sides of the line of scrimmage, really, for about a quarter, but for the defense to get pushed around in the trenches for all 4 quarters is appalling. And it's a direct reflection of the coaches. Maybe not even necessarily this week, but the job this coaching staff has done or not done to prepare the team for battle in the SEC all offseason and through 3 games this year was just piss poor. And they did precisely zero in this game to change my mind. And the one play that really comes to my brain is the 4th and 3 in Florida territory in the second half. Mississippi State's mounting the comeback. They're already back in the game. So the play matters. It's not garbage time. Everyone in the building knew Mississippi State was going to run the ball. Everybody in that building knew that Mississippi State was going to run the ball. They didn't even try to hide it. Jeff Levy sent Florida a message. He said, here you go. I'm telling you, I'm going to run the ball for 3 yards or more on this one play. I don't think you can stop it. By the way, here's a little window dressing for you to mess up your head with a little motion while I challenge you to 6-on-6 combat in the box with my tight end. And here, I dare you to stop me from getting 3 yards. And of course we didn't stop them. And I'm just out of answers or explanations for how a defense can get so easily bullied and just messed with and just tossed around when it happens every damn week. And like I said, with Napier and Strickland, and now with Scott Strickland and chairman of the board, Maury Hosseini, the same bad result keeps happening and nothing's done to fix it. The target spreads upwards. Defense is still bad. I failed them too, but now this is on the coaching as well. There's just absolutely no way you can even somewhat defend the job that this coaching staff has done with this defense. And the reason I didn't end with the grades today is because they're ultimately immaterial. This game never really mattered in the grand scheme of things. This season is all about looking at things from a 30,000-foot view. Not only was Florida knocked out of SEC and CFP contention with the Texas A&M loss, because they came into this game at 1-2 with 3 more guaranteed losses and 2 more very likely losses to LSU and Ole Miss on the schedule. Even if Florida beats Central Florida, Kentucky, and FSU, that's still not good enough. That's 5-7. So heading into this game, Florida was a long shot to even make a bowl game. The path right now is because they beat Mississippi State. So that's 2. So the path now is to win 3 games against teams that they should beat, but are not by any means guaranteed to beat. And then they have to additionally steal one against a team that is clearly far better than they are right now. That's how this team makes a bowl game. You don't get there without pulling a massive upset, either over Ole Miss or over LSU. So we're really in the exact same situation we were in before this game kicked off, just with 3 teams left on our schedule that we should beat instead of 4, with Mississippi State now in our back pocket. And as a result of that, 1 more win in our back pocket now. And just about the exact same situation we would have been in after this game, even if we lost. And by that, I mean Napier's cooked. This is done. It's over. It's not a matter of if, it's not a matter of if the guillotine drops. It is a matter of when the guillotine drops. Keep it respectful, but keep it real. And that's just where things stand right now. The boosters still have the buyout money ready. It's all about timing. There does seem to have been an agreement made behind the scenes that's going to require a little more patience than I initially was told. It's not what I heard at first. That information, honestly, wasn't even wrong. It was just outdated. It changed. The situation changed. And I can't go into specifics on exactly what changed because I'm not going to burn my source of information here. But what I can say is that the bottom line hasn't changed, that it's a matter of when and not if. And the only way that possibly changes is if Florida goes 8-4 this year. That's the number that I was told. Florida's going to have to win 6 of their next 8 games to end the season. So that's not going to happen. It's a non-conversation because that would mean that Florida is going to win one of at Texas, at Tennessee, or against Georgia and Jacksonville. And then on top of that, they can't lose another game to anyone, which means they have to beat FSU for the first time ever, and beat LSU for the first time ever, and beat Kentucky for the first time ever under Billy Napier. And he'd have to pull a huge upset over Ole Miss. So let's, again, keep it respectful, but we keep it real. That's probably not going to happen. So He's not going to make it. At this point, my interest in the Gators is really tied to seeing who wants to be here next year, because there's going to be a new coach. We're going to keep it, again, in reality. Yes, hypothetically, sure, it's possible, in theory, that Napier goes 6-2 in his last 8. Living in reality, it's not. So that means there's going to be a new coach, which is going to mean naturally that a lot of guys are going to transfer out, because that's what always happens in this era of the portal. I want to see who goes out there and does his assignments every play for the Gators. I want to see which names keep coming to my attention as guys who are doing things the right way behind the scenes. I want to hear and see the names of guys who don't quit, who give everything they've got in practice, and then hear and see those names show up as doing the right things on the field. I want to be able to put those two things together and really paint a picture of who is becoming a true leader and who you can potentially build this team around for the next coach for Florida. I want to see who goes out there and gives it his all for the Florida Gators and gives it his all for that logo we love so much. Because if the new coach is going to have any chance at accomplishing anything of substance in his first year, he's going to need some glue guys. He's going to need a Miles Graham, a DJ Lagway, a Tank Hawkins, an Arliss Boardingham, and LJ McCray, and Aiden Mizell. He's going to need those types of guys who, yes, are very talented, but also love this program and love being big pieces of this program. Guys that you can really build a roster around. Because while most of the team next year is going to be new, you need to have some continuity. You can't just completely reload the entire clip at once. You can't do it all in the portal either. Like, you can't just lose everything and then either get them all in the high school ranks and just play all freshmen next year, or get them all in the portal ranks, because then you become FSU this year and looking ahead, probably Missouri or Ole Miss next year. I mean, really, just look at FSU this year. Look at the drop-off. It's not reliable. So for now, that's it for the show. The Gators did win a game. That's good, but I'm sorry, I just don't feel like being in too celebratory of a mood when we give up 480 yards to a team that couldn't even put up that many against Eastern Kentucky. Chris is in Germany, or Chris is in France, I should say. He's touring Germany, but he's in France right now for a couple of weeks, so I'll be holding it down without him. Until then, be sure to smash that subscribe button and that like button for more great Gator content. I promise you we are a lot more fun to cover when the Florida Gators are winning. And one day, we all know, I think deep down, with a new administration and a new coach, I think we all know that one day the Gators will get back there.